Welcome back, CFB Paint. Here we are for another week reaction. Week 3 is in the books. We're a quarter of the way through the season. Sometimes I don't like thinking about it like that because it just makes me think like, oh gosh, this is gonna go quick. But enough for us to kind of look back and review not just this past week, but kind of what we think about some of the things we had and predictions and perceptions that we had ahead of the season. We'll look at that with now the benefit of 3 weeks of hindsight. But as far as our rapid round today, we're talking about trouble at school. And Corey, I don't know if you want to go first. Like we didn't really have like a who got in more trouble so much. It was just like what was the biggest thing, biggest piece of trouble you got into?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge troublemaker. I was pretty much a goody two shoes, but I mean, I wasn't afraid to tell a teacher when they were wrong. So I got thrown out of class one time. The teacher was like picking on one of these kids, and she picked on him for a couple of weeks, and I was like, he's not doing anything else that anybody else in the classroom isn't doing. She threw me out. And then the soccer coach happened to be walking by at the same time, and so I had to run extra laps at practice. Yeah, that's about it. I got called into the one of the offices at one point in time because some fight went down in one of my classes, and they wanted me to talk about what fight went on. And I was like, I haven't been to class in the last 5 weeks. And they're like, where have you been? I was like, I was a volleyball class, so nobody cares. I was like, I was in soccer class because volleyball season's over. And they're like, do both coaches know? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we don't care. All right, cool. So nothing crazy. What about you?
Yeah, I remember just being so afraid of getting in trouble, and I think it stems from one of the first instances of getting in trouble. I don't like we used to go, we rode the bus, right? It was you were around for this, and one of the things that we'd do when we were at the bus stop waiting for the bus, like we would wait in our bus stop was like right in front of someone's driveway, and across the street there was the street sign. We would find little pebbles or acorns, and we'd throw and try and hit the street sign. There's a stop sign there, and there's actually like the name of the roads, and a concerned citizen, I think she was the next door neighbor of the person whose driveway we were in, or maybe a couple houses down. She'd walk her dog, and she saw us do it. Was she?
Was it Miss Bennett?
Well, yeah, but it wasn't Miss Bennett that ratted. Miss Bennett was cool. No, it was that.
Oh yeah, the dark-haired lady.
No, the short hair, blonde, had like I think she had like a Doberman.
Okay.
That she'd walk, super intimidating, larger woman. I can't remember her name, but yeah, she was scary and mean, and saw us doing that, and like I think she said like don't do it, and then like we were like oh whatever, and we waited till she walked away, and then we kept doing it, and then she like told the bus driver, who then brought us into the principal's office that morning before school. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember the guidance counselor getting up on the bus and be like, and she read off names, so get off the bus, and we were like, okay.
Yeah, which to me, like, that is the most like tame, like concerned citizen, dumb. I've got words for it, but I can't use them because we want to keep our podcast on, the clean list. But it's just so stupid. But I remember, like, I look at it now, I'm just like, okay, why on earth did we even waste people's time with this? But so that always left me a little gun shy. This one here, I'll fess up to one. I was not ready for a chemistry quiz, and a buddy of mine gave me a crib sheet, and I don't know how, the only reason I get caught cheating, but the only reason I got caught is because I missed the roll as it got passed around the room somehow. So he had to come back to me while we were doing this quiz. I've got this crib sheet in my hand because whoever put this together, I'm not ratting him out on this. I know his name, but I'm not ratting him out on this. Like, he wrote it so small, and I have such bad eyesight that I couldn't read it, like, sitting on my chair. So I pulled it up to my hand and had not even used it yet. But I get popped by the chemistry teacher. He's like, what do you have in your hand? And I was just like, I wish I had have been good enough to like drop it, with sleight of hand and put like, put my hand palm over the top, just be like, it was here, and then like just drop it and put my hand over it so there's nothing in my hand. I didn't have it. I just knew I'd been cooked, and I was like, it's this. And then it's funny because he then tells all the rest of his classes, and the guy goes to me later that week, and he's like, dude, was it you that got popped? And I was like, yes.
You had a different chemistry teacher than Aaron and I had, because our chemistry teacher she liked our family so much that you just go, hey, I don't quite understand question number 1 on this test. Can you kind of walk me through it? And she teaches you what to do and tell you the answers in the test all the time.
that was not. Mr. Carpenter was cool as could be. Like even then, he was just like afterwards. He's like, "I'm gonna give you a 0. Let's not talk about this again. Like, deal. I won't mess up again." Like, but it was really embarrassing. Just like everyone in the class was just like, "Oh." So not
we'll
great.
Let you go first then. How about that?
All right. So my reaction to this week is really like there were some surprising results. Again, we kind of said it might be a sleepy week. We were a little bit wrong on that, but also not really that wrong. Like, there are only 2 ranked teams that actually went down. Lots of them ended up in closer games than maybe we expected. So for me, I guess I don't know if I have a ton of takeaways. It's just kind of like, okay, what if that was a blip on the radar for certain teams, and what if that was maybe signs of things to come? So I don't. The answer is like we're gonna find out over the next couple of weeks. The one obviously that we're most concerned with, Boston College, Florida State. That's a big look ahead spot toward Clemson. So I'm almost inclined to give them a pass, but it's like in order for that to be the case, you better show out when you go and visit Clemson. But I don't know. That's really my rapid round. I don't have anything like super salient this go around.
No, for me, it was like we were looking ahead to week 4, and it seems like some of the better teams were looking ahead to week 4, and they got some scares. But
definitely,
they were able to kind of recoup themselves. Like you talked about 2 ranked teams going down. One that we both predicted, I think we both predicted they would go down because they haven't won there since like 2003. Tennessee losing to Florida, and they hadn't looked good against Austin Peay earlier in the year. And then the Kansas State Missouri game. Those are formidable foes, and I bet you I can't remember what the line was, but I bet you the line wasn't that different.
It was 5.5. I think when we talked about it, it went to 3.5. I think by the time the game kicked, so gotcha. It was expected to be a close game.
But I mean, you did have you did have FSU go down to the wire with Boston College. Georgia falls behind in the second half, or till the second half, till South Carolina. Texas going into the fourth quarter is tied 10-10 with Wyoming. Colorado, I didn't think that was going to be a game, and both teams made that kind of personal. And then Bama up 10-3 with 15 seconds left in the game, and they decide to push it in for one more touchdown so they can win 17-3. That's just I want to feel good about myself kind of game.
Yeah, that's putting finishing the lipstick on the pig.
Exactly.
That was to me one of the ones I had eyes on that game. I don't know if you saw much of that one, but boy, did they look bad in a lot of different ways. Like quarterback is what everyone's talking about. To me, their offensive line didn't consistently win against South Florida.
The defense didn't look more physical than USF. There are times where their quarterback and the running back were kind of just tearing through people. And I'm like, is the dynasty really over? I made that little graphic messing around, but is it completely over?
Well, we'll have to see already. So obviously we're recording this Monday. Saban's already named Milroe as the starter again, which is just like, well, yeah. You probably could have named him that a quarter into the last game, but
he didn't even play last game though.
I know. Did you see that there's speculation that he was suspended?
Oh, I didn't see that. No.
Oh yeah. So Josh Pate offered that speculation that he was suspended, and based on Saban's comments today, it almost sounded like he showed me what he needed to from a supporting his teammates standpoint, which sounds like I held him out. So who knows on that? Again, we don't have any inside information on that, but Milroe's the guy you're rolling with. Yeah, I think you're going to have to win with defense and shortening games, which again, the clock rules might help you out if you're Bama for the rest of the year. But they're going to face some offenses that can score points.
Yeah, I would say Butler couldn't complete passes. He was skipping passes to guys that were 10 yards ahead of him. And then Simpson was okay. Well, he could go 4 for 8, 4 for 9, something like that. But then you have at least with Milroe, you can throw the long ball. He has a pretty long ball, and that's partially why they were in the game against Texas for a long time. Is because they kept hitting the long ball over top. Now, if I'm playing this team, I'm going to play cover 2 and be like, all right, good luck, beat us. I can watch your run in front of us. I can watch keep your deep ball in front of me. You're not going to win the game. And so this is a Bama team that has Ole Miss this week. Well, we see. I'm excited to see how that goes.
Yeah. And Lane Kiffin's not one to shy away from these kinds of moments. And
have you seen the trolling that went on Twitter?
Maybe.
Go back.
I don't know what you're referring to.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin talked about when they talked about the score being 17-3. Lane Kiffin was like, GOAT. Like their greatest team of all time. Kind of
Yikes.
stuff like that. So.
Well, yeah, that should be fun. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Other games that we wanted to touch from this past week. Another one that I was able to see quite a bit of was the LSU Mississippi State game. Wow. And LSU looked super polished, looked like they were able to do basically whatever they wanted offensively and for the most part defensively against Mississippi State. I feel a whole lot better having them on my win totals draft team now than I did a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So in a world where a lot of the SEC has looked shaky at best or maybe inconsistent, LSU certainly had that in, falling behind by 28 to Florida State in the first week. But, I mean, they look like they might be rounding into form. And, to me right now, I wouldn't pick anyone else in the West over them, I don't think. I wouldn't pick Bama, I wouldn't pick A&M, wouldn't pick Ole Miss, wouldn't pick Auburn. Yeah, I think they're the favorite in the West. They have to be now, right?
I think they do. I mean, Jaden Daniels goes 30 for 34 for 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, runs for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, the dude just was it all. And not that they needed him to be it all. I mean, Malik Neighbors was open all day, 13 catches for 239 yards and 2 touchdowns. But also, like, the defense. Will Rogers goes 11 for 28. Like, the team didn't turn the ball over. Mississippi State, they just got beat by superior athletes and superior defense and stuff like that. It's just like, whoa. Like, a lot of times when you see a game like this in the SEC or within conference, you're like, oh, team had a couple turnovers, had some issues. No, they just got beat.
Just outclassed
on the field.
Agreed. What else did you want to cover from last week?
Oh, let's see. Let's talk about Missouri-Kansas State game. That one's a fun one that we got to talk about real quick.
Yeah.
So a little back and forth, kind of all the way to the end. And the kicker hits an SEC record, but not an NCAA record. I think it's like second longest game-winning field goal ever in the NCAA. But he hits a 61-yarder field goal. The dude is standing on the other side of the field. He's sitting.
Crazy.
Like, I was just like, this is unreal. And this is the same kicker that almost rewind to a year ago, missed the 26-yarder to force, or that made the game go into overtime against Auburn. They should have beat Auburn with his 26-yarder, and they end up Auburn scores a field goal in the first place, and then Missouri fumbles the ball, and he never gets a chance to redeem himself. So, kind of like interesting little full circle here. And then on top of that, like if I went back through his stats and stuff like that, I wanted to go through, do a little digging. So in 2020, he hit 85% of his field goals. In 2021, he hit 92%. In 2022, he regressed a little bit and hit 78.6. In 2023, before this kick, he was 3 for 6, and before this game, he was 2 for 5. He missed a few field goals. He misses a 56-yarder earlier in this game. Actually, my 2 for 5 is wrong, so don't listen to that. He misses a 56-yarder in the second quarter in this game, but then hits 3 more later on, kind of like get himself in the zone, and then he hits the game-winning field goal. For 61 yarders, you got to feel good about yourself. It's a good win. It's a good K-State team. I am a huge fan of the offensive coordinator over there, Colin Klein. I think he's got that dude is on my short list if I want to go get a head coach.
Oh yeah,
I like him a lot. I think he does a lot of good with not a lot of talent. The one issue would be recruiting, and if he can get recruiters on his team, he'd be fine. But yeah, surprising win and one of the best out of conference wins for the SEC this year.
Definitely the best. I think it just stands far and away. We talked about this last week where it's like Cal, I can't remember. Auburn beat Cal. I'm gonna blank on these, so maybe I shouldn't try and list them all.
That's about it. Vanderbilt beat Hawaii. There we go.
Vanderbilt. Well, Auburn. Like I was gonna say, they had 3 Power 5 non-conference wins as of last week. Auburn had beat Cal. Someone had beat
Arizona State lost to.
That's right. Arizona.
Yeah,
Mississippi State beat Arizona, and then I don't remember the other one. I'm gonna spend too much time thinking about it. So, yeah, far and away that I'm gonna go ahead. Sorry, the kicker's name is Harrison Mevis. I feel like he deserves the shout out.
He does. You're right.
Man, yeah, that was fun. I really hadn't watched the entirety of that game, but it just seems like that was a pretty back and forth affair between two pretty evenly matched teams, and that last year the result was not only opposite. Kansas State ran going away, so tip the cap to the Missouri Tigers for making strides in a single year, and who knows what the Tigers are capable of moving forward. I'm kind of excited to see, because as we'll see in another game we're about to talk about a little bit more, the SEC East seems like there's room for climbing if you're up for it. So in sorting out that order, Tennessee took a trip down to Gainesville.
Yeah, can I go one more thing with Harrison Mevis?
Please.
He is 11 for 15 from 50 yards or more.
Wow.
That is in his career. That is insane.
Are you serious? That's nuts.
If you gotta get pick a weak spot of his, it's the 30 to 39 yarders. Like he can hit the deeper balls, and then he's kind of overthinks it, I guess.
I guess that's interesting. 11 of 15. It'd be kind of nice to know. It's like, oh, we crossed the 50, and if we get stopped here, we've got 3 points.
Yeah. But so back to Tennessee, Florida.
Yeah, back to Tennessee, Florida. So I only caught basically the first quarter or so of this game, and it was really interesting to see when I had flipped away to we wanted to watch the BYU Arkansas game, which there's fandom in our house associated with that game, but Florida had driven down and missed a field goal after taking up 7 minutes of clock, and it became pretty apparent, okay, this is what the Gators are going to want to do. They're going to want to shorten the game, stay close. I think we had touched on that. In fact, I had the under in this one, if you'll remember, and nailed that. And it just was okay, they're going to short 14 plays, 46 yards, 7.5 minutes, missed a field goal, and then off that miss, Tennessee gets the ball, 6 plays, 71 yards, and a touchdown. I kind of was like, oh, this is how this game's going to go. And then flipped away and then kept getting score updates and nope, that is not how it's going to go. Tennessee's going to turn the ball over once. Florida's going to score touchdowns on their next 2 possessions. Next 3 possessions. And Tennessee's going to be chasing the rest of the night.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've kind of talked about is I expect Florida to be better than people thought they were going to be. I think the line was 5.5 for wins this year, and I said that I think they'll closer to 7 or 8. This is the thought process I had. Graham Mertz, he's not going to be hopefully he's not going to be a 35, 40, 50% passer like Anthony Richardson is. He's not going to have the guns to take it off the top of the defense, but he's going to make the short to mid-range throws that are going to keep you honest and let them run. You look at him, he's 19 for 24, pretty good percentage for a $166 and not many yards. I mean, that's less than 8 yards, like a throw, with 1 touchdown. But it opens the door for Travis Etienne to have 23 carries, 172 yards, and a touchdown. They were able to lean on that run a little bit more. I mean, you look at it, it's 166 passing yards, 183 rushing yards. They lean on that run. That's their strength there. And that's going to be their opportunities to win games, is if they can control the game and lean on that run. And that's what happened. They were able to do it. Tennessee, the curse of the swamp, whatever you want to call it.
It lives on.
Yeah. Didn't they lose to Philip Franks a few years back in at home too on some random thing?
Yeah, that was okay. I think I've told the story on the pod, but in the event that I haven't, I was watching that one. My mom and dad were here. They were in Salt Lake for a convention with the family history thing that they do, and I think dad was down there working with them on some stuff, and so mom and I were just up in their hotel room watching that game, and Tennessee was leading the fight. I can't even remember. They were winning, and I can't remember the name of the running back, but he was having himself a great game for Tennessee. And it looked like they were going to win, and my mom was like, oh my gosh, they're going to beat the Gators. And I was like, no, Mom, you don't understand. The joke that we'd say, and I use it with Kentucky as well. And both of these have kind of been turned on their heads in more recent years. But the Gulf of Mexico is going to beat Florida before Tennessee beats Florida. And yeah, that was the Felipe Franks, I think, 63-yard bomb to Antonio Callaway. Just right at the last play of the game. And I was like, Mama, she was like, I can't believe that happened. I was like, I'm not in the least bit surprised that Tennessee found just a crushing way to lose this game again.
I think the other thing that helped Florida in this game literally was the fact that like they got up early and then Tennessee had to go for it on fourth down, and they go 0 for 3 on fourth down. I mean, they convert almost 50% of their third downs, but that 0 for 3 on fourth down stops those drives, doesn't let you get points. I mean, let's say they hit 3 field goals on those. I mean, that puts you at 9 points. That puts you at 25, 29. You're within striking distance. Now you're having a real game potentially. But never did that.
Yeah, and that's true. Like, but I mean, I could hardly blame them on, the first time they went for it. It's 4th and 1 from the 17. I think you got to like your chances to get a yard, and they don't. The next one's a little further out where they're 4th and 6 from the 44. So I'm not sure you can kick that one.
I don't think you can kick a field goal. But I mean, you would have been at 26-13 maybe then by that point in time. You're only down.
That's true, yeah. I was going to say, I guess it compounds where you go for one and don't get anything, then it kind of forces you to go for the next one still. Yeah. And so, yeah, they were just playing catch up and never were able to get caught up. That 20-point second quarter, 3 touchdowns for the Gators really kind of set the tone for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we've talked about with this running clock. If a team can shorten the game and they get ahead, can you get back in the game?
It's trouble. Yeah, it's trouble. No, it's a really good point. Let's stay in the SEC East. A little bit of a surprising result out of Athens this past week. Georgia, South Carolina. Georgia trailed 14-3 at half, end up shutting out the Gamecocks in the second half, winning 24-14. This was one of those. We'll cover my total predictions from last week, but this one was like, oh, I probably should check the weather and understand that they're going to be playing in rain and throwing the football may not be as easy as it is in other conditions. But yeah, this was a really interesting one. The slow starts offensively for Georgia are starting, like you said, first week we have one data point. We really don't know what that is. With 2 points, you can at least draw a line and see are they trending up? Are they trending down? Now with 3, it's okay. Now it's becoming a pattern. And I don't know how Bulldog fans should feel about the offense. I think I know how they should feel about the defense. They should feel pretty good about it. I think it's a pretty salty defense with, a couple of big plays given up there to South Carolina that helped them put some points on the board. But outside of those, I feel like they've got the defense that looks, I don't know if I'd say championship caliber just yet, but it looks, like it's going to hold up its end of the bargain. But the offense is really banged up. First of all, like they're out there trotting out a walk-on running back. And I remember the broadcast saying, like, he's so good they couldn't keep him off the field. And I was like, or they're really injured at running back and they have no choice but to put him on the field, which is just kind of like Gary Danielson. Come on, man. Like, anyway, but I mean, I think there's injuries starting to mount up on a couple of different areas there, and I don't know how long some of those players are going to be out, but thankfully I think they feel like they have a really long runway with the schedule that they have. So if guys aren't out for the season, I think they'll be back and probably round into form. But I don't know. There's a little bit of me that says, like, hey, if they are in a tight one with Florida at this point, I'm not going to be totally surprised. I mean, that's the way that Florida wants to play the game. We just kind of talked about it, where they want to shorten the game, want to run the ball. And if you get up a couple scores, who knows what happens?
Yeah, if your offense can't blow teams out, you're going to be in trouble potentially if you let teams hang around. We already talked about how we thought this short clock would let teams hang around a little bit more and might see some more upsets. So their soft schedule maybe results in a loss or two. Or not. I mean, it's Georgia. But, like, I agree. Like, these slow starts are not something I would be happy about as a Georgia fan. I'm interested to see what happens as the season goes on. The problem is they don't play anybody supposedly formidable. I mean, your hardest game probably is Ole Miss, maybe Tennessee, if they get it figured out.
Yeah, I would have said Tennessee, but now I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I mean, you have Florida. I mean, and Kentucky, but they didn't. I mean, they won this last week, but they had a bunch of turnovers, so who knows?
Yeah, be interesting to track moving forward. I guess one more quick shout out. A good friend of the pod is one of my coworkers who lives up in Seattle. I got to recognize the Huskies, the dogs, getting things done. Go into Michigan State again. I think you and I both picked them to cover the spread. The only real concern we have is how does the travel affect them? Because we don't think Michigan State had much for them, and turns out we were right. They didn't have much for them, and the travel not a problem either. 35-0 at half. He texted me and said that's the best half of football I've ever seen them play. So shout out to Will. Washington, to me, I still am interested to see how the Pac-12 shakes out, but I am already regretting selecting Oregon over them in the win totals draft because just think they have the offensive firepower to beat anyone. I'm not putting a ceiling on the team. I think they can win the national title.
No, I don't think you're being crazy on that. They are. I have a couple teams that I said that I've kind of written down, and we'll talk about it later. That are teams that have brought it every week. They are been real. They have not taken their opponents lightly, and they have handled their business. And Washington is one of my top lists. I've seen a couple of people that have them ranked number 1 on their rankings. So
hard to argue with it at this point.
I mean, Bill Conley currently does.
Yeah, I saw that, and it's again, no one's out here blasting teams right and left like they are, and so It'll be interesting as they see more of the stiffer competition that's on their schedule. But the folks wearing purple and gold have got to be feeling pretty good with where they're at right now.
Yeah, for sure.
The one thing I like, and I don't want to take us too far down a rabbit hole, is Kalen DeBoer so far has had a dream season 1 and an awesome open to season 2. I'm hoping the recruiting starts to tick up a little bit so that they can keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, do we know where they are currently in recruiting class?
I don't. I just know that I checked in the last one. All right, it's his first time. He's in his first season as a head coach. It's really that second class that ends up being really important. And I think they've got some guys. I'm a little surprised that I'm going to be talking on some things that I'm not super familiar with here, but I just want to see them become more of a recruiting rival to Southern Cal and Oregon, who I feel are currently kind of dominating the West Coast when it comes to teams on the West Coast that are up in the recruiting ranking. So would love to see that. Just again, there's a soft spot in my heart for Washington. So it's the only knock I have on Kalen DeBoer so far. Everything else, he's passed with flying colors. I'm not here to throw shade. I'm just saying you'd like to see him cash that in a little bit more.
Yeah, looking at the 2024 class based off 247 rankings, they are ranked 52.
52. So. And it's early, but we'll see. Maybe they end up just being a transfer portal destination. Who could blame them? I think if I'm a wide receiver looking for a new place, it'd be hard to say no to them.
Is Michael Penix Jr. there for much longer?
No, this is his final year of eligibility, so that would be the argument against it. But I mean, he's done this with Jake Haener. He's done this with multiple quarterbacks. So I think the track record's there to suggest hey, I'll get quarterback right. What we need is the weapons on the outside.
You bet an entire season right on Jake Haener, right? Isn't that what I was?
Yeah, I did. Yes. Oof.
But I mean, he's winning, so. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, we're really excited to see Washington go forward. There's, I guess, one more thing that we wanted to tackle from this most recent week before we move forward. But there's some pretty surprising results. Maybe ones that didn't make national headlines that we wanted to just point out for some of our fans. And I don't want to steal your thunder, Corey. I know you assembled some of this list. So, okay. Well, I mean, maybe I'll just introduce them and you give me the bullet points that you feel like. The biggest one, a headliner to me as far as surprising results, South Alabama goes to Stillwater, Oklahoma, and wins 33-7 against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Yikes.
There's no this team is gonna I mean, I don't even know what is this Oklahoma State team gonna be in a little bit. South Alabama's a good team. They lost to Tulane earlier this year. I think they're gonna be a really good team for
in the Sun Belt, yeah.
For Sun Belt, yeah, but I don't expect them to. They'll be a top tier in the Sun Belt, but I mean, Oklahoma State. I'm gonna pull information on that game real quick and just kind of run through it and see.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll go ahead and just kind of talk through. I believe so. Last year, I picked Oklahoma State to finish like toward the bottom of the Big 12. Thought that they lost a lot of production, and then this past off season again, they lost even like transfer portal gutted that roster.
Yeah.
You know, your starting quarterback transfers to Ole Miss to be on the bench, like to not play that much. He's played some, but like Jackson Dart is the starter at Ole Miss. You had a bunch of other players transfer elsewhere. You know, Mason Cobb, your best linebackers now at Southern Cal. Like, just anyone that was a major contributor outside of Colin Oliver, like the defensive end, is essentially gone. And I remember at one point in one of our off-season episodes, I talked about this. I was like, man, that team got gutted. And then I also looked at their schedule and I was like, oh, that schedule is pretty kind, you know, like it doesn't have a ton of, you know, they play Oklahoma, but they don't play Texas. They don't play Texas Tech. They miss quite a few of the more challenging teams in the Big 12. And so I was like, okay, maybe they do, you know, maybe they do like, you know, I think their win total was what, like 6.5 or something. So I was like, maybe they get over that. But like now I'm just like, man, should they be expected to win a single more? Should they be favored to win any other game on their schedule? I'm not looking at their schedule right in front of me, so I'm more asking than I'm suggesting. Yeah. But
no, I mean they've beaten Central Arkansas and they've beaten Arizona State at Arizona State. But that's kind of one of the. I think that's the team that's taken the second or third most transfers, and like what it's to be expected. The question is,
and it looks like a disaster right now.
Huh?
Just for Arizona State, it looks like a disaster. They lost 29-0 to Fresno State last week.
And also I think their quarterbacks got hurt too.
Yeah, they've had some injury. I'm just saying it's not exactly a super impressive win to beat Arizona State right now.
Yeah, the question is who plays quarterback for them? I mean, if you're looking, they've had three people play quarterback. Oh, where did my stats go on that? Yeah, 3 people play quarterback. You've had a total of 115 attempts, 68 completions. So your completion rating across all quarterbacks is about 59%. You have 57% for one, 61% for another, 58% for another, and your 3 touchdowns.
No separation. Yeah.
Like there's no separation. There's nobody that's better than anybody else. You're just soaked in mediocrity. That's really what you are. It's gonna be rough.
Yeah. Another surprising result, Cincinnati, the Bearcats, had what we think was a pretty impressive win over, oh gosh, now I'm blanking on it. I don't have it in the show notes. They beat Pitt. Is that who they beat?
I don't know off the top of my head now.
They beat some ACC team that I didn't necessarily expect them to beat. I think it was Pitt, but I don't know that.
Either way, they lose to Miami of Ohio for the first time in 16 years.
Lose to a MAC team.
Yeah, not good.
And I was just about to give both Coach Satterfield and Emory Jones like some kudos, because it looked up to this last week that, you know, Emory Jones has had kind of somewhat of a career renaissance where he wasn't great at Florida, was not good at Arizona State. So far this year had been pretty solid. Yeah, they did beat Pittsburgh. Sorry, to close the loop there. They beat Pittsburgh, and I was like, oh, that's surprising, but we'll get to Pitt in just a minute. You know, and then you have a game where you lose to Miami of Ohio, a team that, you know, we already have a data point. They played Miami that first week and could not do anything offensively, and felt like Miami could have scored a lot more than they chose to in that game. The Hurricanes, not the Redhawks. And we're back to that. I forgot we're supposed to be calling Miami of Ohio the University of Oxford in Ohio. At any rate, just a surprising result. And the Bearcats, you know, now moving into Big 12 play, went from what I thought was feeling pretty confident to now, well, we'll have to see. They play, who do they play next? Let me get that mixed up. They have a bye week, and then they play BYU. I'll be at that game.
Me too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
All right,
we'll hang out.
We'll have to connect at the game. So yeah, that was a little bit of a surprising result. A couple of others that we wanted to touch on. West Virginia, we kind of talked. Like I said, we'll get to Pittsburgh. West Virginia wins the backyard brawl this year after a kind of devastating loss last year. I don't know if you remember, that game was wild last year. This game was much more boring and just less scoring, less just. I know that their quarterback was injured early in the contest, and so not a whole lot of offensive fireworks. But they beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh 1-2 on the year, and just looking, I remember thinking that's a dangerous team that not a lot of people are talking about. They got Phil Dracovic from Boston College as the QB. He's proceeded to just throw the ball to the wrong team multiple times. I think in every game, and I don't know. There might be some trouble brewing in Pittsburgh, and it's a real shame because if things were going really well there, Narduzzi might be the person that you might call if you're Michigan State because he was their defensive coordinator for such a long time. So the timing couldn't be worse for Mr. Narduzzi. But that was just kind of an interesting one. We talked early in the season. I guess we'll get to this a little bit later, but like we talked early in the season about Neil Brown might be one of the first coaches to be handed a pink slip. I don't feel that way anymore. I felt like they had an okay showing against Penn State, and they won their last two games. And they're all of a sudden it looks like, okay, those teams that are going to finish anywhere between 9 and 14 in the Big 12, on the right night they can win those games.
I think you're right. We're seeing teams that, in my opinion, we're seeing a lot more mediocrity this year than I kind of expected. Like teams are playing down the levels of a lot of teams are playing down the levels of other teams. Like you look at Texas struggling with Wyoming, you look at Oklahoma struggling with whoever they was last week. You look at Florida State struggling with Boston College. Ohio State hasn't been able to put up points until this final week. You have a couple teams that have handled their business and stuff like that. Alabama struggling USF, losing to Texas. Like you have some teams that are handling their business, and I'll talk about those in a little bit. But like a lot of teams either struggling or losing to teams that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just fun to see how it shakes out and changes from year to year. I feel like you're seeing more violent shifts in certain teams, and I think transfer portal is probably a big contributor to that. The fact that a team's roster can turn over more than 50-60% in a single season is kind of foreign territory to us all. So we're kind of getting used to like how the entire makeup of your roster can change and the entire complexion of your season can change based on one off season is probably exciting for those that are looking to make changes and also terrifying for those that like, oh, we had a great year. Now, how do we make sure that all these players stick around? Go ahead.
Talk about the other one.
Yeah, the last one that we just a quick note on this one. Sacramento State beat Stanford. I was just following that one on my phone. I have not watched a single play of it, but it's just exciting for me. It's exciting because Troy Taylor, the current head coach at Stanford, left Sacramento State this past offseason to take the Stanford job, and his former players or whoever may have still been around from his tenure there were able to just give him a nice little like good game, coach, pat on the butt after they after they beat him. So Sacramento State ends up pulling that one out. Now, again, I'm still pretty bullish on what Troy Taylor's going to do at Stanford long term. I think the guy's a program builder in Sacramento State. He had a lot of success there. Looking at his recruiting right now, they're recruiting well above what they should, given the recent results that they have. So I long term, I would say buy low on Stanford now. If you could buy stock in that program, I would do it right now, and we'll sell high later. But that was just kind of a fun one. It's like, oh, that's good. I'm happy for those players. Just like, not necessarily. I don't know if he left with any sort of bitter feelings between them, but it's just, those are the fun ones where it's like, oh, he's moving there, and they get to play the very next year and see who won the breakup, basically.
Yeah, no, 100%. They won the breakup. And about their recruiting, like Florida State lost a 4-star defensive end that they wanted out of South Florida to Stanford. And the one thing that Stanford's got going against them is that they have a lot of travel coming up in the next few years since they were part of the ACC. But
yeah,
still exciting, interesting, and does it give them a chance to? You're not competing with USC. Can you get the backups to the backups in the South? That might not hurt, Or if you're getting 4 stars, yeah.
We'll have to see. Should we do a quick win totals draft recap?
Can we talk about Colorado State, Colorado one real quick too?
Oh, I skipped over that. I'm sorry. Yes, let's do it.
You did. That game was funny because it was made personal by both teams, who kind of said it wasn't personal, but it was personal. Like the whole shades thing wasn't supposed to be a shot, but then you watch the fight that kind of starts at the beginning. You watch the Deion shuffle later on in the game from one of Colorado State's players. You see the illegal hit probably on purpose against Travis Hunter, who knocks him out for 3 weeks now. It was a personal game, and Shedeur Sanders and Deion and that team just said, we're going to go win this at the end. Steve and I watched the last quarter pretty much together, kind of talking on the phone. Thinking holy cow, is Colorado going to come back and win this thing, or is Colorado State going to win this? And it goes into overtime, and they make the mistake of winning the toss and then going first. Colorado does. But
no one's talking about that. Have you noticed that? That part to me is surprising that not that many people talk about it. Yeah, Shedeur says, "Oh, we want the ball. We'll go on offense." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that means they're gonna go. Potentially, if it goes to multiple overtimes, they will have to go first for at least the first 2. It doesn't come back to bite them, but that was a little surprising. The maybe lack of preparation there, but
the first time I've seen lack of preparation though by Colorado's team, to be honest. They've looked pretty dang polished.
True. Yeah. True. My only other observation on that game was number one, love in the stands, the number of sunglasses that we saw for a 6 o'clock local kick that was going to go, or 6 o'clock, not even 6 o'clock.
No,
8 o'clock local kick. Yeah, it was way late. It was 10 on the East Coast.
No, 10 Eastern.
Yeah, 10 Eastern. So 8 Mountain Time. So excuse me. But yeah, so a night game and just everyone's that's what makes me love college football.
I would have wished they would play the song I wear my sunglasses at night.
Or maybe I got my hater blockers on or something something like that. But the other thing I was gonna say, I felt like the Colorado State coaching staff kind of flinched at the end of that game, got nervous, got afraid to let him back in. There's a couple of things I wanted to highlight specifically with that. Did not love the prevent D on that final drive, the 98-yard drive to tie the game. But more than that, didn't love we're going to punt the ball on 4th and 2 on Colorado's side of the field with, I think, 2+ minutes to play. Yeah, so they punt the ball. I think you should have gone for it there for a couple of reasons. Number one, I feel like your offense was getting 2 yards when it needed it, either via the pass with those really shallow drag routes that they kept running, or running the football. I think they'd been successful enough on it. The other thing is if you do that, okay, yeah, maybe you give them the ball at midfield, but it also maybe gives you a chance when they had the 30 seconds left in regulation after Shedeur drives them down to score. Well, if you'd have cut half of that off of the, half of the 98 yards that he had to drive to tie the game up there, maybe you have a chance to go and kick a game-winning field goal in regulation. So that was one that I just didn't love that decision. Didn't love that they weren't going after Shedeur until, basically the touchdown play. That was, I think, the first time they really sent pressure during that entire drive, if memory serves me right.
I was actually trying to look up some stats talking about pressure. I wanted to characterize their last drive with Boston College last drive against Florida State a little bit. Shedeur Sanders just gets sacked 8 times last week. I think he got sacked 4 this week. But, you can get pressure on him. You can sack him. You can put them in situations where they're not going to be successful. And Colorado State chose not to do that. Where if you characterize that with the Florida State team, Florida State said, you know what? We're going to move you off your point. You've been passing around us, and we're going to blitz you, and you better beat us with your arm. And what happens is they end up getting getting Boston College at 3rd and 20, and Boston College still converts a 3rd and 20, but then later on they do the same thing. They don't divert from blitzing, and they sacked the quarterback to end the game a little bit. And like, I agree with you. Colorado State should have done that. I'm pro aggressiveness. I was watching another game. I can't remember which one it was. They played prevent, and all of a sudden the guy gets behind the prevent defense, and it's like, all right, what's the point of playing prevent? I think you can play cover 2, that's fine, but don't. If you play cover 2, you have safeties back there to be safe anyways. So might as well play a little bit line.
The last one that I was going to point out, and it was just like not going for 2 in your overtime possession. I thought that was a chance where you could say, like, okay, great, they tied the game, but we have our opportunity to wrap our best second, our best 2-point play or short yardage play, and just win the game. Mm-hmm. Felt like they kind of gave up some opportunities to potentially just shut the door and not give Shedeur another chance to pull out some heroics, which he certainly did. Like, tip my cap to him. He's carrying the team at this point. I felt like for a good while the Colorado offense was bottled up in that game. It's a fun game. It was a really fun game to watch. I just wish it maybe maybe a 7:00 local kick or a 6:00 local kick would have been nice. So I wasn't up till like 1:00. I can't imagine what people were on the East Coast, but
yeah, it was like 1 or 2 before they went to bed.
Yeah, wild. So I guess, like, looking at the time here, we may want to keep this one a little bit shorter. So like maybe we skip the wins totals draft for this week. Okay, we'll cover that next time. Now that we're a quarter away through the season, we have some observations on, and Court, you specifically have quite a few of these that you wanted to go through, but like quarter way through seasons, give me your take. What have you learned? What has been confirmed to you? What have we kind of said, okay, we thought this, it's clearly not the case? Fire away.
Yeah, so I want to talk about teams I trust, first of all. Like, teams that have showed up week after week after week. You may not have played anybody good. But you're beating the people that sound like you should, and you're doing what you need to. Well, we talked about Washington. They're number 1 on my list right there. But then closely behind them, you have Notre Dame. Notre Dame has looked great with Sam Hartman as their quarterback, being a balanced attack. Sam Hartman is like, I had numbers on him. He's at 71% completion rate, throwing for over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, taking care of the ball. That offense is looking great and very, very, very balanced. Michigan, they're not blowing teams out, but they're beating teams, and the game is never in doubt. I have them along with Penn State kind of doing the same thing. They're handling their business. They're never in doubt. My last 2 teams I have teams so far that have been like the real deal. Oregon State, like, been impressed with their wins. They haven't absolutely destroyed everybody, but they've been in control. They've done what they need to do, and they've never been in danger, in my opinion. And then lastly, Duke. All 3 wins have been by over 20 points. Mike Elko's got the team rolling, got it polished, and that might be an interesting team to watch come later on in the season, see how they do with it, conference play in ACC. So fun to watch those teams. Excited to see. Those are the teams that I trust right now. Everybody else is like, you may be great and potential, but you're played down to some of your talent on some of these games, and it's a little scary. I don't know if you have any comments on that, or I can go on.
I mean,
speaking of another team that's played down to their talent.
I love your list. No, I'm right there with you on quite a few of these. I don't know if I'd quite put Michigan in that. There's been a couple of like, this is closer at halftime than it really needs to be, but there's a reason they play 2 halves, so I can kind of see it. I can argue it both ways. For me, I think, a couple things along those lines. Duke, we talked about this heading into the season. Like, I like the team. I thought the schedule was just so brutal, and I still tend to think some of that. I mean, I need to let me pull it up. I don't have it right in front of me right now.
Hump. That's insane.
Yeah, that's the big thing that's quite encouraging. Is like I did expect them to beat. I did expect them to beat Lafayette and Northwestern. So 3-0 isn't necessarily all that surprising. But that 28-7 win over Clemson is really impressive. It's really exciting because you get to kind of see, okay, are they for real? They've got a game against UConn this week. I think they're going to win that game. It is on the road. But next week, Notre Dame, and Notre Dame off of a game against Ohio State. So that is not an easy 2-game stretch. I think heading into the season, you would have said, okay, we're going to fight a war against Ohio State. We may be dinged up, whatever. We can rest some guys against Duke. No, you cannot. Duke is going to
Notre
bring
Dame
it.
has the hardest schedule in the country this year, right?
My goodness. It's no joke. So I'm right there with you on Duke. I think to me, I'm thrilled to see, and I wish it was being played a little bit later in the season. Of course, you couldn't schedule this knowing the things that shook out in the Pac-12, but huge game. Washington State, Oregon State, both undefeated. The lone holdouts in the Pac-2, and man, I really wish this had happened later in the season, or I'd be fine if they didn't play each other this year and went undefeated and met each other in the Pac-12 championship. that would be the real storybook. But nonetheless, huge game in Pullman this week. You'd think that there's a part maybe between the third and fourth quarter. I don't know if Washington State has any particular tradition there, but maybe we all just do a group hug because it's us against the rest of the conference, and really whatever happens here will not change the friendship that we have.
They should just take their Pac-12 patches and just scribble off the one.
Yeah, just darken it in with a Sharpie or something. Yeah. Good idea. I like it. But some show of unity has to happen there, right?
I agree.
Where was I? Sorry, totally lost my train of thought getting deep in this sentimental moment for the two teams that are currently on the outside looking in when it comes to major college football for 2024. I think those are my only things on your list of teams that you trust. But you had a couple of other observations that we wanted to talk through.
Yeah, I want to talk through Alabama falling out of the AP top 10 for the first time in 128 weeks. It's the second longest streak ever. Do you know who has the first, Steve?
Does Alabama have the first too? Or is it Florida
Alabama
State?
Does not have the first.
Is it FSU?
It is Miami from 1985 to 1993. Who's number 3?
Whoa.
137 weeks.
137. Okay. Oh, this is number 3 at 137?
Oh, no. Number 1 is Miami at 137. Number 2 is Alabama at 128. Number 3 is Clemson at 97.
Wow. And that's from what, 15 to 18? Oh, to 21. Wow.
Yeah. I in my head expected Florida State to be up there. Nope. Not up there. They're number 10. They also have to be number 11 because they had 1 week where they dropped to 11th in the polls.
Oh, right in the middle of that.
Yeah, so they go 62 weeks and then 64 weeks, and if you add the 2 up, that's 120.
Yeah, they'd be weeks right up there. And
if you go before that, they have. If you scroll farther down, let's see. I've got the notes here. Let me find it real quick. And they have 2 weeks where they in 1990 where they are not. They have 2 losses. And they drop from 2nd to 12th, and they sit at 12th for 2 weeks, from in 1990. So from 87 to 90, they were 34 weeks in the top 10. They could drop out for 2 weeks, then they go back into there for 62 weeks, and then they drop out for a week, and they go back in for 64 weeks. That's a crazy run. I don't see Bama returning back to the top 10 within the next 2-3 weeks, but we'll see. Just interesting little stat there. I don't know if you have any further things on that. I've got one other thing I want to talk about.
Yeah, go for it.
We talked about coaches that are going to be fired at the beginning of the year. I threw Mel Tucker's name out. We talked about the fact that he had that $80 million guaranteed contract, which isn't looking so guaranteed anymore. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back on that one potentially. But we also talked about names of some quarterback or some coaches, and I want to see.
I mean, he got fired, but not for the reasons that we thought.
I honestly,
unless you knew something I didn't.
My opinions, honestly, are that he's getting fired for the reasons we thought. I think it's a he said she said situation. You're going to go to arbitration, and you're going to pay $40 million to fire the guy that you wanted to fire anyway, instead of $80 million.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what they're. This is opening the hole for them to do whatever they want to do. But let's talk other coaches that we were talking about being on the hot seat. I think my number 1 person was Neil Brown at West Virginia.
Yeah, he's up there.
They're 2-1 with a win over Pitt. Didn't see that one coming, to be honest. He had a loss to, I think, Louisville?
No, they lost to Penn State.
Oh, Penn State, yeah. And they looked quality in that game. It was 28-13 or something like that. So
yeah, close enough. I think they looked competitive enough. It wasn't, I don't think the game was ever really in jeopardy, but like you didn't get embarrassed, right? And yeah, that one's one that it will be interesting to track forward. Like kind of like we mentioned, like I think there's an opportunity for them to get more wins. Like I think that Big 12 looks, some of them look more gettable than I would have said for West Virginia, and then I would have said a month ago. So
yeah, I agree. I think they run into somebody else that's pretty difficult this week, but I can't remember off the top of my head who it is. But moving on, we talked about Dino Babers at Syracuse. He's doing Dino Babers things. You win at the beginning of the year, you can't fire me.
yeah.
So he's 3-0. Like they've looked pretty good so far. Like
yeah, I was gonna say they put up points galore. Would have liked to see maybe a little bit more against Purdue, but a little more points. I think winning by 15. I think they covered the spread on that game if memory serves me right. But I mean, who knows? They have a really tough stretch here. So they play Army this week. After that, they play. Yeah, well, I mean, just it's a tough team to prep for on a short period of time. All that, but like then they play Clemson, UNC, Florida State, back to back to back.
Yeah, it might be 4-3 quick, or
yeah, they might be. The narrative might shift back there, but again, you've got games after that of against Virginia Tech. I would assume that they're probably favored in that game.
Yeah, I assume so.
Then they host Boston College. I would expect them to win that game too. Hosting Pittsburgh, which again heading into the season, what I would have said was a loss, but now I'm like, they're probably going to win that game. And then they go on the road at Georgia Tech, and then they host Wake Forest. Like they might just eat like a 3-loss sandwich in the middle of their season, but other than that, it's a storybook ending.
Yeah, they're favored by 14 over Army, which surprises me a little bit. That seems high.
All they do is score points. Like we'll see if Army can shorten the game. Is the question there?
Yeah. Then we'll touch on a few more people. Tom Allen, Indiana. Their one win is against Indiana State. They haven't looked all that great. They hung around with Ohio State, but I don't know if that was Ohio State keeping them in the game or.
I'm a fan of this Indiana defense. I mentioned it last time again. That was another one that I had where I had the under in that game because Indiana's going to play defense. They're not going to play a ton of offense, but they're also going to play pretty good. I like their defense. Their defense, they play physical. They play with a lot of passion.
Would they lose to Louisville like 17-14?
21-14.
21-14.
Yeah, well beneath the point total. Hold on. 54. Yeah, we were at 35, and I had the under in that one.
45.
I did. What?
Was that 45?
I have 54 written down, but I could be wrong.
Saying that 21-14 is not 30. Oh, it is 35. I can't do my math. Woo!
Okay. No, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so that one I was feeling pretty comfortable. 21-0 at half, and I was like, okay, I think Louisville might coast here, and sure enough, they didn't score again. Yeah. So coasting a little too much, but I don't know. I'm not sold on. I mean, at this point, they've had kind of a tough stretch. Louisville, they weren't expected to win, and they lost. Ohio State, of course, they're going to lose that game. Again, looked competitive in those. Indiana State, I don't know if I've learned anything new about Indiana other than their defense is very physical. They fly around and they hit people.
Yeah, can you imagine if they kept a linebacker from Oklahoma?
Deshaun McCullough.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They'd be. They. I mean, I don't know if he changes the outcome in any of these games, but he's made enough plays that there's an opportunity for that.
You want to go through a few more people real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk Jeff Hafley, 1-2, barely beat Holy Cross, lost to Northern Illinois, and then shoulda, coulda, woulda beat Florida State. That would have been Boston College never beat a top 5 team at home. They also have never had 18 penalties against themselves in a game. They almost did both this week.
Golden opportunity there to have a head mounted on the wall, if you will. I'm like I don't know why that's not working because Jeff Hafley was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. I was a dynamite recruiter for them. I thought that was a slam dunk hire, and it just doesn't seem to be shaken out.
I think this is going to go in the right direction. I think the switch to Castellanos.
Yeah.
is a good switch. He's a true freshman, or not really true freshman, but he didn't play much at UCF, so he's got like 2 games that he started ever. Like, give him some time. He looks polished. He looks like, or not polished, but he looks athletic enough to win you some games. In the end, they probably could be a 4 or 5 win team with him. He's transferred from UCF. Florida State wanted him as a running back, and he wanted to be quarterback, and he showed that he wanted.
Yeah, and he's looked pretty good. Is he going to be good enough, quick enough to save Jeff Hafley's job?
Yeah, that's the thing. He went to him in the 3rd series of the first game, but should have gone with him from the beginning. Anyways, and then last but not least, I'm going to bring up Dana Holgorsen. We talked about him a little bit.
I think we were right on the money there.
Yeah.
it's yeah. So it might be time to hit the reset button. Houston.
They're 1-2 with their 1 win against USDA, which probably UTSA, whatever it is.
Yeah.
San Antonio, Texas. And they probably shouldn't have won that game, to be honest. Like, they played probably above themselves, but they lost to Rice and they lost to TCU. So
who are you getting?
We should add to the list, Steve.
Oh, I was sorry. Like, who are you hiring if you're Houston?
Oh, I don't know.
And you got Tillman Fertitta money behind you, the owner of the Houston Rockets, who's also a Houston Cougars.
I'm gonna go get. I tried the Tom Herman thing again and go get the wide receiver coach from Ohio State, just like you did when Tom Herman was.
Oh, interesting. Because
he was great in Texas or Houston, wasn't he? And then he was good for a few games, and then he went to Texas.
Who, Tom Herman?
Yeah, didn't he?
Tom Herman was awesome at Houston. He's the one that beat Florida State in the Peach Bowl with Greg Ward as his quarterback.
Yeah, so I think I go do the same thing, and I go get the Ohio State coach.
Brian Hartline, interesting. I was just like, the reason I brought it up is because you mentioned, they beat UTSA, and I think it looks like the Roadrunners might be a little bit down this year. And it's like maybe Jeff Traylor is looking for a new spot, and Jeff Traylor, I think, is a heck of a coach. It's going to be hard to maintain success at UTSA for more than a season or two. So that was he would be on my short list, I think, if provided he has a winning season at UTSA this year. I think with the resources you get at Houston, again, with Tillman Fertitta being your major backer, you've got some opportunity to make some noise there. So that one I would think wouldn't be short on potential suitors as far as coaches being interested in that job, because I think you're going to have some resources there that may not at a lot of others.
Honestly, I can't imagine Houston and UCF staying down long in the Big 12. So, like, those are the teams I think will rise to the top eventually.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm very curious now that you've got the 4 corner schools all migrating over, what the power dynamics, how they shake out 4 or 5 years down the road in that conference. It'll be fun to watch. Yeah, you said anyone to add to this list. I think the one that did we talk about Jimbo?
We didn't talk about Jimbo a ton. We kind of mentioned him as a possibility, but just the buyout's insane.
It is.
You lost to Miami. You're 2-1 with a loss to Miami. That A&M fans are taking every loss super, super hard. So, yeah.
And I think they should be. He's in year 6 there, right? And with real tangible results to show for it. So
there's been absolutely no increase from this coach from your last coach, none.
Yeah. The further out they go, it's just well, man, the similarities are kind of staggering. Couple of measuring stick games for them, I think, in the next couple of weeks. If you're A&M, if you lose to either Auburn or Arkansas, I think the writing's on the wall, right? You can't lose to either of those teams, particularly with the showing that Arkansas had this last week against BYU, which we didn't hardly touch on. Which was a really fun game. I think maybe we circle back to that one when Brian's on the pod, because Brian was actually able to attend that game in person, so we'll get his take on it. But Arkansas doesn't look particularly challenging this year. Auburn is in the start of the Hugh Freeze era, and if he's already ahead of you now, It's only gonna get worse. So I think you got to go and win those two. If you're 4-1 heading into a home game versus Bama, you're gonna have a crazy environment, and Bama, like, that game gets really interesting, I think. So that one could be a fun one.
Bama's at. I mean, you have Ole Miss this week, and then you have. I'm pulling up the schedule real quick.
I can get it. Sorry, it's right here.
Ole Miss this week, you at Mississippi State, and then at Texas A&M. If they are 2-3, or if they're 2-3, like, you're expecting Texas A&M to win that game. If they're 3-2,
they're not going to. They're not 2-3. They're going to beat Mississippi State. Come on, man.
Quarterbacks, man. I take Will Rogers over those quarterbacks. Of course, all you got to do is go along against Mississippi State. I was just saying, like, they're probably
right.
Process. Did they beat Ole Miss this week?
I think they do.
You think they do? Okay. It's at home, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I'll have a few minutes to rethink that before we record our week 4 preview. So, like, give me a minute to think through it.
Join the list of all the coaches that are starting to beat, Nick Saban.
His former assistants.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, that'll be a fun one. I think adding Jimbo to the list is definitely that. I think you need to. Yeah. I think 9-3 might save his job, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you're recruiting.
And even then, I think only maybe.
We'll see. Who do you go get there? Anybody you want.
Yeah, anyone you want. Like,
anybody will take $90 million to go be a coach for 10 years.
Yeah, $90 million guaranteed. Yes, I'll do it. I'll do it.
You do just as good a job as Jimbo. You got the bag man.
I won't recruit as well. That's for sure.
All you need is the bag man, and that's what Jimbo has, is the bag man.
Yeah, maybe. All right. I don't know if I'd add anyone else to that list. Right off the top of my head. No. Come on, man. I'd be going off like NCAA. I'd be asking Madden, like, what are we doing here?
That might work. Anyways,
I know I would go for it a lot more on 4th down than Jimbo does. But I don't know. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head that I would add to that list of, like, hey, keep an eye on this. At least at this point, we're seeing lots of struggles from.
Seriously imploded yet right now. Yeah.
Maybe I should have been a little bit more prepared for that question. So ask me again in a couple weeks, and I may have a different opinion.
Yeah.
Gundy. I mean, he probably wouldn't be fired, but I would consider it. He's the most winning coach. He was a former QB there. I don't think he's getting fired, but if I was that AD, I would think about it. I think you have to think about it. But I don't get the sense that that's the case. I think on the Cover 3 podcast, but Elliott spoke with one of his sources out there, and he just said, yeah, it seems like he's pretty secure. So this is not my information, giving credit where credit's due as far as the journalism goes, but I from just the armchair quarterback that I am says, when we're losing 33-7 to South Alabama at home, there's a real problem. There's a real problem. So yeah, I don't know of any others. Parting shots. I didn't even have anything filled out here.
Yeah, my only thought process is next week is big boy week. So put your pants on, play the game.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I don't know. Yeah, I was trying to think of something clever off the top of my head that rhymes with hypo, but I can't. And so I'll just leave that alone. Good job, Billy Napier and the Gators doing what they needed to do. Turn that season around, turn the narrative around a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if I have any other shots.
I'm just excited for all the games. I have to go help someone move tomorrow, or Saturday, which I'm kind of like bummed about. So I'm going to miss a substantial amount of football, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. So I will be on the road that weekend. I'll be out of town.
Will be driving. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, that's what we did for the LSU game, like where we watched the first quarter or so at at a relative's house, and then drove over to your place. I was like, Megan, you're driving because I'm going to be watching the game, and she was kind enough to do that. But we're trying to figure out what's our plan for football that day. for both like our teams, so Florida State, BYU, which play back to back, and then it's like, do I just go full airplane mode and just shut down and then just catch up Sunday? Like burn through a bunch of games that I've DVR'd on YouTube TV. Probably, but I don't know. We'll see. It's always hard for me to like not check my phone when those things
I
happen.
can't do the airplane mode. I'm like, oh nope, I gotta know what's going on.
For sure. Well, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap. This has been our week 3 review episode of the pod. Please give us a like, a follow, a share, a subscription, whatever it is on the platform that you're currently getting this information. It's always helpful. We've actually had, I don't know if you saw this, last couple of weeks have been our best couple weeks in history. So really exciting. Appreciate all the support. If you're listening this deep into the pod, we sure appreciate it. And please continue to show that support and let us know what you think about our own comments. Like, comment on the YouTube, tweet at us, email us at cfbpain@gmail.com. Let us know what you think, and we will include some of our responses to your responses. And we'll see you on our week 4 preview, which is going to be huge.